All right. So, welcome to the workshop. Thank you so much for being here. Um, it's not easy to come to a workshop like this. So, I really do feel a lot of appreciation for the courage to even sign up for a workshop like this. It's a vulnerable subject, and it's not always easy to be and talk about stuff like this and explore this. So thank you so much for coming. And first movement I'll give you is just a little pat on your back, or whatever is will make you feel a little appreciative of yourself. So this is bring down your walls and loosen up after being in an abusive relationship. So, oops. All right. So I'll just introduce myself shortly. My name is Orit. It means my light in Hebrew. I'm a board certified dance movement therapist. I have a master's degree in dance movement therapy. It is a real thing. And before I started my own business, I was a dance therapist at a psychiatric hospital. I actually ran a team of about 7 or 8 creative arts therapists, music therapists, and art therapists, and worked with a lot of people with severe depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, addiction, schizophrenia, a lot of really intense stuff. And I'm sharing that with you mostly because I want you to know that you're in good hands here. I've seen and had under my care a lot of intense stuff. And, I want to invite you to be open today in this workshop. Nothing is too much for me. I can handle it. I do my best to create safe spaces. I used to run groups with, over 20 people who were really on the edge of life. So if you ever feel unsafe here tonight in this hour, please let me know, because I definitely want to make sure that this is a safe space. And I'm glad Caroline is here, because she's the one who told me recently that I'm a reflector. It's a human design type. And I'm just getting into this, but it made me realize that I was created for this work, because the main thing that I do as a dance therapist is I reflect in my body my clients' experiences so that they can see themselves through me. And that gives them the chance to have compassion and empathy for themselves, maybe for the first time in their lives. And I'm also really really passionate about this work because I experienced this wall that I hit in my own talk therapy. I grew up with a dysfunctional family in an abusive home, and talk therapy was helpful to an extent, but it wasn't really until I dug into the movement therapy as I was becoming a movement therapist that I really could create a shift in my life where I could be comfortable in my own skin and honestly be here today and feel okay doing this. So it's a little bit about me. Feel free to ask me anything else. So who are you? You are here, I think, because you're currently single and you are sort of ready to mingle, or you're thinking about getting into a relationship after being in a crappy relationship. And that's a nice idea, but then there's a part of you that's very, very scared of it because it has not gone okay in the past, whether you grew up with kind of abusive or traumatic situations in the home, or you've been in more romantic relationships that also were abusive or traumatic. And now dating or finding a new partner is hard, it's awkward, it's scary. And while that happens for a lot of people anyway, it's like double or triple intense for you because of this past that you carry around with you. And I know some of you I've invited, we've talked about you being here and that you are with a partner right now. And so this is going to be relevant for you. It's just that the awkwardness, the scariness, the difficulty feels that way with the same partner over and over again. So I just want to confirm that I'm talking to the right audience. And if this sounds like you, can you just give me a thumbs up or a yes or yep in the chat box. And if there's something here that better describes you, can you also put that so I know, so I can address you as well? Hey, Shay. Okay, I got a yes. And if there's anything, all applies except I doubt I'll ever be ready to date. That's also a really common feeling too, is like the fear is so strong that I've heard a lot is like, maybe I should just spend the rest of my life alone, or maybe it's just not even worth risking my happiness. But what I do want to go forward and show you tonight is kind of, if you do know there's a part of you that does want to be in relationship again, does want to have that companionship, that partnership, then this is why we're here. Defensive would describe me. So can you, if you don't mind, I mean, you can leave it at that, but if you don't mind, could you tell me, do you mean defensive in like meeting other people, meeting new men or women? I don't know which way you go. Let me know and I'll continue. So sensitive at meeting new people. Yep. Gotcha. And we're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to get a little bit more specific. So today I'm going to guide you. We're going to talk about how your barriers and walls are showing up for you. And we're going to go through a simple movement experience on how to loosen up and so you can open up. Then I'm going to share my offer and it's free. So I'm excited to share that today. And then we're going to go through Q&A. If you have any questions, I am here. I'm going to stick around. I'm happy to answer them. I know some of you are popping in now, so just say hello, and we're going to get into all of it right now. So, how do your walls show up today? So, I've listed some things here. This is just a lot of the stuff that my clients have shared with me. If you resonate with any of these, or all of these, or some of these, write that in the chat box. If there's stuff that you're experiencing that's not on here, please also share that. So I want to make sure that, we're understanding what's going on. Stalking you as one of my practitioners for my community. Awesome. I love being stalked. Thanks, Caroline. Okay, we got all of them. Freeze up and act like a dope or a jerk. Okay, those are your words. I'm not calling you that. A great actor. So what does that mean? Do you mean the first bullet point, act really cool, calm, collected? For those of you just joining, we're sharing, how do your walls show up? Which one of these, or if none of these, what do you do? How do your walls show up in dating and meeting new people, in maybe even just thinking or imagining being with a new partner? Overanalyze signs. Yep. I can never act cool or collected, but I act that everything is fine. Right. Yep, I understand. So everyone who's just joining, we are talking in the chat box at the moment. So if you can find the chat box, that's where we're all talking. Spotting everything that is wrong in them. Yes. Yep. Okay, so keep sharing, and I'm gonna move on to second guess everything that I do. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of you resonate with some of these or a lot of these. Okay, you're not alone. Let's talk about, what do you say to yourself? What do you say to yourself when this happens? Am I right or wrong? Yeah. I just put up some examples of some things that people have shared with me. Let me know if you've said some of these, or maybe there are some other things that you say to yourself, like relax, chill out, just be cool. Or maybe you're a little bit more, you do a little more self-defeat, like you're an adult. Be an adult and just relax. Like act like an adult. Or maybe you tell yourself, I just need to loosen up. If I could just loosen up, everything would be cool. So what do you say to yourself, whether that's in the moment or maybe it's after a date and you're like banging your head against the wall and, you know, what is the thing that you're telling yourself when you're banging your head against the wall, being like, what did I do there? So many things. You're a dope. You blew it. You'll never have a good relationship if you can't even stop freezing up. Thank you so much for that honest, vulnerable share. Thank you. So a little bit of self defeat, and it's horrible. Yeah, and telling yourself, I'll never have a good relationship if you can't even stop freezing up. Yeah. So a little bit of tough love for you there. Does anyone else do the tough love? Feeling inferior to everyone. And how does that, like, what kinds of things do you say to yourself when you feel inferior? Is it like, oh, everyone's just, I'm not good enough for anyone, or this person's just gonna think I'm weird, or just feeling judged? Tough love or misery? All right, we got a group that's hard on themselves. I understand. I can be hard on myself too. So, all right, I'm going to move to the next slide. You're never going to get your shit together. You don't deserve for someone to love you. Oh, yeah, really tough love here. Really hard on yourselves here. What did I do to attract this? Okay. So I don't know, like in the sense that you're saying that, if it's like, what did I do? Or is it just like, what kind of energy am I putting out there to attract this? Or what kind of vibe am I giving off to bring this into my life again? All right. So I'm going to keep in mind that today here we have a group of very tough lovers. This kind of stuff that happens and feels really awkward and hard, and it probably feels even worse when you tell yourself, well, I'm never gonna get my shit together, right? So we're gonna try to let that go for at least a few minutes and loosen up here. So if we could just chill and loosen up and not freeze in the moment, like if we could just tell ourselves that would be great, right? Like if that could work, you probably wouldn't be here. But that doesn't work, right? It doesn't work a lot of the time. It doesn't work most of the time, especially when we have unresolved trauma. So let's have an experience right here, right now, where we can actually physically feel more loosened up, because our bodies can help us do that. So I'm gonna stop sharing my video for a minute, and you can stop your video if you do not want to be seen in the recording. And okay, so what we're gonna do is about a 5-minute experience here. And we're just gonna do a basic loosening up here. It's not gonna be anything huge because I can't see you, and in my best efforts to keep a safe space, I'm gonna keep this pretty simple. And if at any time you feel unsafe moving, open your eyes, look at me. If looking at me isn't keeping you safe, that's fine. Look at something in your space that makes you feel comforted. It could be a plant, it could be a picture. It could just be something that makes you feel good. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths. So we're going to breathe in and breathe out. Our intention here is to just relax and loosen up. And take a breath in and out. And one more time. Take a breath in in, out. And just remember your intention right now to relax, to loosen up. And we all have different bodies. So everyone's version here of loosening up can very well look different. So while I guide you, know that you can go slower, you can go bigger, you can go smaller, you can go faster. You do not have to follow me exactly. It's actually best if you follow your own body's desires, your impulses, and the things that, the way that your body wants to move you. So we'll start with our heads. This is going to be a sped up version here just because of time. And start rolling it around in a circle. Keeping on breathing. And maybe for you, it doesn't look like a circle. Maybe it's side to side, half circles. Remember the intention to relax. Keep breathing. What do you need to do to relax right now with this movement? And then we're going to move down to our shoulders. If you're still up with your head and your neck, feel free to join me when you're ready. So, move back a little bit. So rolling your shoulders back, or maybe rolling them forward. Maybe if your shoulders feel really tense, you can take a deep breath in and tense them up and let them go with a big breath out. Maybe exaggerate that. You can also give your shoulders a hand, giving yourself a hand. It's a little bit of a different feel than the tough love. It's like, hey, you're tense. Let me give you a hand. Got you. And play with direction. Follow your body's impulses. Maybe you want to go into a stretch. Or maybe you just want to slowly expand. So from the shoulders, we can get our elbow involved, elbows. And from our elbows, we can get our arms to expand and stretch out. And now I'm hoping you're at a point, it's okay if you're not, but you're a little bit more in flow and you can follow your body a little bit more. You can follow your intuition in your body a little bit more to move and relax. And I'm getting inspired by Amy right now. She decided to leave her camera on, so I'm calling her out. So what is that? Is that, moving, swaying side to side? Is it just kind of continuing with a twist? Maybe it's the whole upper torso going around in a circle. There is no right or wrong here. And just continue to remember the intention is to relax. So if you're feeling at this point like, oh my gosh, she's kind of stopped guiding us a little bit. What should I do? What should I do? Come back to the body, come back to the breath and out of your head, because there is no right or wrong here. If your impulses are telling you to stop and check in again, that's totally fine. And now we're gonna wrap this up here. So whatever you're doing right now, no matter how big or small your movement is, think of a car. Think of taking your foot off of the gas pedal and a car slowly, slowly, slowly decelerating. That's how I want you to think right now of slowing down your movement. So it's not a full brake. It's not an abrupt stop. It's making it slower, smaller, until you're ready to come to stillness so that you can have a nice transition into stillness. And once you're there, we're going to take 3 breaths again. Breathing in and breathing out. Maybe more attuned to your body now. Bring in whatever movement you want with these breaths. So when you inhale, bring in whatever movement you feel called to do. And that could be no movement at all too. Breathe out. And one more time, breathe in. And breathe out. And just come back to bringing the energy up into our minds a little bit, but stay attuned into your body. And I'm gonna, while you do that, while you come back, I'm gonna share the screen again. And take your time. Whenever you're ready to come back and share your experience. I don't know why that's happening. Okay. We're gonna just have a little discussion. And even though we're getting into, more cerebral, more verbal talk, stay tuned with your nonverbal, with your body sensations, with how you feel. And if you could pick a few words, share how you're feeling right now. How is that for you? Whether you feel more loosened up or not, whatever you feel right now, you're welcome to share. You don't have to be loosened up to share. There's no right or wrong answer. More relaxed, grounded, and present. Creaky. It's been way too long. Do you feel creaky right now? Or is that more of like what your experience was moving? How do you feel right at this moment? Grounded. Group soothing visualizations. What kind of visualizations? You mean like you had images pop into your field of vision, wherever that was? I like the car slowing down. Yeah, imagery is so powerful with getting connected to our body and getting connected to different kinds of movements. The creakiness has decreased, but letting go of some pain. Letting go of some of the tension leads to more pain. I wonder if that creates an opening almost into confronting the pain in your body more. I felt free to flow with my limbs in figure 8 motions. So keep sharing. If you're still kind of coming back, that's okay. If you took this feeling you have right now, the groundedness, kind of the soothingness that you experienced, the things that you experience and how you feel now, if you took that with you to meeting someone new, dating, maybe even just starting a brand new relationship, do you feel like that would, is that a different experience than what you have in your body, nowadays, when you were talking about feeling weird and awkward and acting and overanalyzing? Is this a different feeling than that? And would this would this change? Do you feel like this might change the way you would approach those situations now? Probably. So tell me a little bit more about probably. What are the doubts there? Because I know you said in the beginning um, that you doubt you could ever be in another relationship or something along those lines. What's the doubt that's still there? If everyone could feel like loosening up, yeah. What do you mean by everyone? I want to say it would be different, but that's only if I remember my body. Awesome point. We're going to get to that. Yes, very different feeling. I think movement can help me unfreeze or maybe not freeze. Maybe keep a movement in my pocket I can use when I see the person who interests me or when I feel a freeze coming on. My perceptions. Okay. You mean like everyone in you? Like if we could all cooperate in there? I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but I get that. So that's really my next point here. Um, doing this together, in this virtual room here, moving in this safe space that you're in and with people who have had very similar situations to you, or you at least know they're in the same place as you right now. It's easy to feel relaxed. It's easy to feel good and get to this place and get more grounded. But the problem is that because of our history, the walls come right back up again at the first sign of trouble. So when you get out there in real life, like you can kind of not saying names, kind of what someone else said, like that could just, if my body doesn't cooperate, if we could just be like, all right, let's loosen up, let's be relaxed, that would be great. But if our bodies don't cooperate, it's going to be a little harder because we've been building these walls up for so long. We can't just do one movement to take it down. We can't expect this whole wall to come down with one movement. So if you think of a tightrope walker, when they practice a few inches off the ground, it's wobbly at first. It's not stable. They fall off. They're shaky. They're anxious. But eventually they have that mastery. And they have that mastery over their body, over their emotions, and then bring them 10 feet in the air, and it all comes rushing back again. All the shakiness, all of the wobbliness. And suddenly that mastery, it feels lost. And that's kind of what it's like when, you practice this here in a safe space with like-minded women, but then you go out in the real world, it kind of just all feels like it goes out the window. So we can, take a few bricks out of the wall, but the whole thing isn't going to collapse. Or if we take out the wrong bricks, like if we take out some bricks and the whole wall collapses, then that seems really scary. That's very frightening, and it can make us be like, I'm not doing that again. It's just not even worth trying again. And I have a cool story of a session that I just had this week where one of my clients was telling me that she attracts men who are either very smothering and clingy and just like, what's the word, infatuated with her. And then she doesn't really end up liking those men. And on the other hand, she also attracts men who are very emotionally unavailable. And those are the ones she's attracted to. And we talked about this a little bit. But then the awesome thing is that we put into movement. And we kind of built profiles over about these different men, and including herself. And not profiles like, okay, what's their name? What's their job? Blah, blah, blah. It was like, if you could give him a movement profile, what would it be? So the one who's more smothering took up this big space. He took up a lot of space. He was more like hovering over. He was very close in proximity. That would be his movement profile. The one who was emotionally unavailable, she described him as grounded and strong and direct. And before we went on to do this, to kind of role play this, we also profiled her. And this was awesome to experiment with, because this is also my kind of my profile in Laban movement analysis. It's a movement analysis system. There's something called spell drive, and it's these particular 3 movement qualities that make up like this seductive, timeless, kind of trancy movement. And this is my comfort zone in my profile, by the way, and this was hers as well. So I was like, okay, you do your profile, and I'm going to switch off between the 2 men. And what ended up happening was, she didn't know when these 2 different men were coming. And I also met her at this seductive place too. So that was like a safe zone for us. When I was the infatuated guy, she ran to the other side of her room. This is over Zoom, by the way. She ran. When I was the grounded, strong, present man, the direct man, she froze up and she had to go to her wall and lean against it for support, because that's how ungrounded she felt. That's how frozen in fear she felt. And it's just, I'm telling you this because, we could have talked about it for the entire session, but it's not until we put it in our bodies, until she got to experience it in her body, that she could really feel what was going on in her deep nonverbal subconscious and have that experience. And now that we have that experience, we can change it. We can start to change that story and change what's playing out from her deep subconscious. And this is one of the things that I love about movement is, we can almost simulate the real world. So I hope that story made sense. Let me know if there's anything you want to ask about that. So your nonverbal subconscious needs to match your conscious intention. So the part of you that's saying I actually didn't hear a lot of this from you. I didn't hear a lot of, relax, loosen up kind of talk. I heard more negative self-talk. But if you were to say like, all right, you know what, this time I'm going in, I'm going to be relaxed. I'm just going to be cool. That's your conscious intention. If your nonverbal subconscious is saying, no, we're not. Nope, this is not cool. Nope, we're not safe. And it wants to go into that frozen and fear place, or it wants to run away and go out the door, that's what's going to happen, because this is not a thing we can logic ourselves into. This is not like a mind control thing. The body gets in control in that moment if the nonverbal subconscious is reacting in fear. Thanks. So does that make sense so far? I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that, but does that make sense so far? I just want to see if anyone has any questions before I go a level deeper into this explanation. Okay, makes sense. On board. Okay, so just to have a visual of this yellow ring here, our conscious intention, these are our thoughts. This is the stuff we think. This is kind of like what you might say to yourself of just be an adult and get on board or you'll never get in a relationship. These are the thoughts that might go through your head. Now, your subconscious thoughts, it's up until here, you probably heard a lot of other people talking about, subconscious. Other practitioners talking about subconscious thoughts. This is the part of your subconscious where the thoughts that you're not aware of anymore, that's where those are. So let's say when you were younger, you got into a really bad fight with your dad, and he told you, I wish you were never born, something horrible like that. If this happened when you were 4, let's say took you a couple years, but you just kind of left it behind. You're like, all right, whatever, I'm going to move on. I'm just going to take care of myself. I'm going to live my life. And you put that out of your mind. It goes out of your awareness, goes into your subconscious. And this is where talk therapy really helps. So you start seeing a therapist maybe 15 years later, and you start talking about, and your therapist asks you, so how's your relationship with your dad? I don't know, I'm just making this up. It's maybe not where they would go right away. And you might say, well, it's been rocky for a while. We don't really talk that much. And you dig a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and you have a memory, and you're like, oh, actually, when I was 5, we got into this fight, and he said, I wish you were never born. Like, I totally blocked that out. I totally forgot about that. And so that thought became subconscious, because at one point you experienced that in words. That was literally experienced in words to you. It was also experienced in your body, but you had those words in your memory. Now, if we go a level deeper, this is your nonverbal subconscious. It's deeper than the conscious intention. It's deeper than the subconscious thoughts. These are repressed memories, traumatic memories, repressed emotions, all the stuff that you experienced that never got to words. So that's the stuff that you experienced before you even had verbal language. That all is in the nonverbal subconscious because it never existed in words. And that's also where severe trauma lives too, because when we experience trauma, the parts of our brains that makes decision, that thinks about things, that has those words, it goes offline because we're under such stress. We're in survival mode that, that your only need is to survive. You don't have to think for that. You just have to act. You just have to make an impulse move. So that's where the trauma goes that never made it to words. And now it's in this nonverbal subconscious area, this kind of like deep place in your body. And we can try as much as we can to change that with words, to access it with words, but it does not speak words. It speaks movement, because movement is the language of the body. So that is why your nonverbal, your conscious intention needs to match your nonverbal subconscious. You can call it your nonverbal subconscious mind, your nonverbal subconscious body. Does that make sense so far? Well, not so far. That's kind of the gist of the whole thing. How do we do that exactly? I am going to tell you soon. I just want to make sure everyone's on board before we get into how do we do that? Yeah, no problem. So how do we do that? There's no answer I can tell you here that's like, all right, you got to do this, and then you got it, So it's a whole process. Let me try to change the slide. Okay. So in order to really dissolve these walls, we have to access the nonverbal part of your brain to process and release the trauma for good through your body. It doesn't mean it erases what happened to you. Your trauma is part of you, but to release that part of you that still controls you, the part that you can't logic your way out of. And there's really no simple way to explain this entire process, but I try to break it down to 5 steps so it's a little bit easier to understand. The first thing you need is to feel safe, because without feeling safe, we won't get anywhere else. Again, if we don't feel safe, that part of our brains that processes and learns new information is shut off. So there's really no point in learning something unless we have a safe space to do so. Once we establish safety, once we really feel that, we need to have nervous system regulation. Because right now, as some of you described it at least, something happens and you go into freeze, or you shut down, or you go fight or flight. So the nervous system is responding with one of those responses, or mixed of those responses, depending on what the situation is. And that comes back to not feeling safe. That comes back to survival mode. And so you either need to be able to regulate yourself, or you need to be able to co-regulate. And co-regulation happens when you feel safe with someone else who's calm, who maybe tells you, all right, just put your feet on the floor and look at me and take a few deep breaths. And that co-regulation happens. It happens together because this connection with this person who's making you feel safe actually calms your body down. So if you've ever seen a toddler who's having a tantrum in a public place, and it's like no matter what the parent or the caregiver is doing, like no matter how calm they are and how much they're trying to help them regulate, it's like, that tantrum is not ending anytime soon. I worked with a lot of preschool kids with a lot of behavioral difficulties and autism, so I've seen this a whole lot. And they don't have the ability to regulate themselves, and they don't have the ability to co-regulate either. That's like a whole nother workshop. So you need to have that too. And number 3 is when change can really begin. So you learn new ways of being through movement. You learn new ways of expressing yourself through movement. And the question of how do we access, or how do we get to the nonverbal subconscious, that the nonverbal subconscious's language is movement. Just as if you wanted to access your subconscious thoughts, the language for that is talking, is verbal language. And so when you learn new ways of being through movement, you learn, well, I can actually be direct. I can tell this guy, you know what, I actually don't accept drinks from strangers. Thank you, but I'm going to get my own drink. And you could be direct, because maybe accepting drinks from a man scares the crap out of you and can make you, feel that awkwardness and that kind of panicness and needing to escape to the bathroom or whatever. So you learn in your body what it's like to be assertive, and the way that every movement represents a different coping skill, a different behavior. So we can learn different behaviors through movement. But that's not enough, because you have to embed that into your body. Kind of like riding a bike. If you learn to ride a bike and you get on the bike and the person who's teaching you is just kind of holding on, and you do it once and you're like, okay, the next time you get on the bike, you're probably not going to be able to have that smooth balance where it's like, it just feels fluid and easy. So you have to embed these new behaviors, these new movements, these new ways of being and expressing yourself into your body. It has to become part of your language now. It has to become part of your nonverbal subconscious's language. And it's deeper than muscle memory, right? Because with the bike, you eventually get the muscle memory and it's easy. It's accessing that part of your body that has the deep trauma and changing, letting that part of you know that we can be a different way. And then comes time for the real world. We put it to the test, kind of like that example with my client from before. That was the first time we did this with this specific situation. So we have to do this over and over again until she's ready to, bring that out into the real world. And then she starts seeing those changes happen on a real life level. So Does that make sense? Let me know. If you have any questions, is there anything I need to explain further? Because I know this stuff is new for a lot of people. I'm going to take a sip of water. Every time I take a sip of water and then I hear it on the recording, it's very loud. So I'm sorry if you hear my gulping very loudly. It's new and awesome. Thank you. It's amazing. Yeah. It's new, and at the same time, I guess for me, and I think for my clients when they do it, it's actually also strangely simple. It's like, oh, like when my client had that experience of being frozen, she's like, yeah, that's it. That's how I feel. It's just like kind of a deeper confirmation and validation in their body. Learn new ways of being through movement. I might just be flighty, but can you explain how to do that? What do you mean you might just be flighty? So, hold on, let me just see. Okay. So learning, it's not a stupid question. We've done this, we've done some of this before. And if you tend to be, so I'm guessing if you tend to be flighty, maybe your movements tend to be quick and abrupt. That is kind of how you naturally respond. Maybe that is your comfort zone way of responding. Something that we might do is start to explore more soft, more suspended, or you can say slow movement. And you're just more soft, and the deceleration is one of the things that we did before a little bit. We'd really, one of the things we could do is really embed that in your body. So what is it like, especially because you said about black and white before, what is it like to not go from 0 to 100? What about all the places in between? Your body might not even know the experience of that. So we can practice this very gradual acceleration through movement, like putting your foot on the pedal very, 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 very slowly, increasing the speed, and experience all those places in between, and do it the opposite way too with decelerating. And when that happens, a whole lot of shit comes up, excuse my language, comes up with that too. One of the things that one of my clients said when we were doing this acceleration is like, oh, let me try to remember. Like she said, I realized that growing up, because she grew up with a dad who was a narcissist, she never got to speak up. She never got to really say anything without someone in her family speaking over her. So she kind of just went from, all right, I'm going to say this really short thing and then stop. And she never got to experience those places in between. They were not safe. It meant she was stomped all over. It meant she had to shut up and shut down. So that was one really cool, interesting realization from that. So choosing movement is opposite of my usual movements, not just opposite, but also all the space in between. That is part of expanding your window of tolerance. So we don't just go from I'm calm to I'm flighting or fighting, or to freeze. We have all the space in between that you can tolerate things that once scared you that now feels like, no, I'm still chilled. I'm still in my zone of cool. Yeah. I can answer more questions at the end too. So can you see that you can't just tell yourself to calm down, relax, and loosen up? We can't just wish and hope it. Can't just tell ourselves that. Your body needs to feel safe first to loosen up and let those unhealthy barriers down for good. So feeling safe to doing all that other stuff we just talked about. That is the first step. And without that step, it's going to be real hard to feel safe anywhere else, let alone express yourself in a different way or have that regulation or that calm, even when things have scared you in the past. And also the cool thing about this is that when you let down your unhealthy boundaries, you build healthy boundaries. And then that's when you really start to tune in and know, okay, I know that this person is a frog and this person is a prince. Like, you can tell the difference more, because when you have all these defensive layers up, you're going to probably push everyone away. Everyone's going to seem scary and not good for you, but you might be pushing away someone who is perfectly good, who's perfect prince or princess, whatever. So I am offering a free compatibility call. If you want my help with implementing this change into your life, if you want to talk more about how this is possible for you, we can talk more about what exactly is going on for you, how it's showing up for you in your body, in your behavior, and then we can talk about how I can help you. And I think this link is clickable. If not, you can take it down. But that is a link to book a chat with me. And if we find that we are a match and we would work well together, then we can talk about taking that further. All right. Thanks so much for coming. Great to have you. I'll be sending an email out too with the same link. All right. So this is for 5 women only. That's the amount of space that I have left. And I'm just going to put my some testimonials up here, because I know that kind of just thinking about exploring this more is scary. And I'm also open to answering some questions. Can't click link from my phone, so I'll just put it in the chat box then. You're welcome. And if you have any questions, or I'm gonna leave some space for you to read. I know one of these is really long, and if you have any more questions, feel free to write that in the chat box. So how do you know where to go when you're first learning someone's story, since abuse, etc., is a tough subject? I'm guessing you mean in session, like where do I take my clients? So I'm going to assume that's what you mean. And within ourselves. Okay, so how will you know where to go? For me, with my clients personally, when I'm working with women who've experienced abuse, trauma, etc., I make the assumption that you have cut yourself off in a way from your body. And my first and most important MO is to give you a safe experience of being in your body. So without that, again, without the safety, without the foundation of safety, we can't go anywhere else. So what that looks like with me is something we did today is a great place to start. I mean, I work with people who are on all different levels of that. Like I work with some people who are dancers, and it's different. It's a little bit different of connecting to your body. I work with some people who really don't know what it feels like, because the trauma is stored in the body. It can be just much easier to go through life ignoring our bodies and cutting that off, because it can be so painful to confront. And it doesn't have to be painful. It's just that without the safety, right? If you pull those bricks from the bottom, the wall collapses and it's too scary to go there again. So there's this assumption that if I confront this, I'm going to fall apart, when that actually doesn't have to be the case. This is all very relatable to what can happen in the Alexander technique. Yeah, so you understand. Yes, I know. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or do you have a further question from that? We got about 2 minutes left. I'm happy to stick around a little longer for questions, but I assume everyone's got to go. I respect your time boundaries. You're welcome. Okay. Oh, any questions? It's interesting to remember in my mind and my body all the things I experienced a couple of years ago when I was doing lots of dance movement therapy. Yeah. Um, you know, you have, you still have those experiences, even though they feel far away, they're still a part of you. They're still part of your body memory. And you can get back there. Like, you can get back there. You just need to feel the safety first. You just need the regulation first. But you still experienced all those things. You still grew a lot from that time, and I'm sure you're still growing, even if it's hard to see it. But it's not like it all gets erased. You still have that memory, that expansion in your body. It's there. You just got to access it again. All right, so if no one else has any questions, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And thank you all for coming. Oops. Okay, there we are. And thank you for coming. If you have any questions that you want to ask me privately, you can email me. You'll be getting a few emails from me over the next week with the recording and just with the link for the offer again. And you can always reply to that, or you can reply to one of the reminder emails if you have a question you want to ask me personally. Is everyone feeling okay? Everyone okay? Just check in. Well, nice to see. Even though I can't see all your faces, it's nice to see you guys. All right. Have a great night or a great morning if you're on the other side of the world. And again, thank you for coming. Always brave to explore these things. So, I hope you recognize that in yourself, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.